So you think you know 80s music, do you? You might want to think again. Now, whilst Madonna and Michael Jackson were ruling the charts, there was a whole other sound rising. It was called Neo-Prog rock. From soaring keyboards to epic guitar solos, this was prog rock's second coming. Now, in discovering Neo-Prog rock, the 80s music you might have missed, I'm going back to the underground classics you probably didn't catch. Now, this was a genre that often flew under the radar, but if you're into your intricate compositions, your theatrical performances, and lyrics that go deep, 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 then you're going to want to stick around. Now, I've got a pretty good idea what some of you are thinking out there. Dave, Neo-Prog, is that just another term for prog rock? Well, to be honest, not exactly. Neo-Prog emerged in the late 70s and hit its stride during the most of the 80s. It's kind of like the musical equivalent of prog rock, the next generation. More melodic, more accessible, and a bit more radio-friendly. Try to think of it as prog rock for people who might still have a Pink Floyd poster up, but who've also started listening to new wave on the side. Progressive rock, traditional prog, was at its peak in the early 70s with bands like Genesis, Yes and King Crimson. We all know about those guys. They were all about big, sprawling concept albums, complex time signatures, and let's face it, it's sometimes way over the top musicianship. But by the late 70s, that sound was starting to seem, well, a little bit old-fashioned. Punk, new wave, and synth pop, they were the new kids on the block, and they were making prog look like it had stayed at the party a little bit too long. It looked tired, it sounded tired. So along comes Neo-Prog, which says, hey, we still love all that cool, complex musicianship, but what if we made it a bit more emotional and digestible, without all those 20-minute flute solos and the like? Well, the result was music that kept the spirit of progressive rock alive, but gave it a fresher, more modern twist for the 80s crowd. So what was it that set Neo-Prog apart? Let's try and break it down a little bit. There was melody and emotion. Neo-Prog brought the feels. Instead of leaning on just technical prowess, it focused more on emotional vocals and relatable lyrics. Think less weird, spacey sci-fi epics, and more deep, introspective, emotional journeys. Then there's influence from symphonic prog. Now, bands like Genesis were a big influence, but Neo-Prog took that symphonic, keyboard-heavy style and made it more accessible. Synths were becoming huge, so this genre leaned into that atmosphere. There's also shorter songs. Okay, there were still long tracks. This is prog after all, but Neo-Prog wasn't afraid to trim things down a bit for mainstream appeal. Songs became more structured and radio-friendly. Then there's theatrical performances. Neo-Prog inherited the love of drama and theatricality from those early prog rockers. Expect elaborate costumes and stage setups. Think of Peter Gabriel's Genesis, but with more 80s flair to it. Alright, so who were the key players? Let's give you a dive into 10 bands that kind of defined Neo-Prog and kept the prog flame alive during the 80s and beyond. Let's start off with Marillion. Now, you really can't talk about Neo-Prog without looking at Marillion. These guys are like the Beatles of Neo-Prog. Their 1983 album, Script for a Jester's Tear, is basically the Bible for the genre. Fronted by that larger-than-life singer Fish, that was the guy's name for those that didn't know, they brought theatrical performances and concept albums back in style. But it was their 1985 album, Misplaced Childhood, that really cemented their legacy. With hits like Kaylee, they even managed to score a few top 40 singles, proving that prog could still sell records in the age of synth pop. Then there's IQ, a massive favourite of mine. Another cornerstone of Neo-Prog. These guys embraced the complexity and emotional depth of prog rock. But like Marillion, they made it more melodic and direct. Their 1985 album, The Wake, really is a must-listen. Atmospheric keyboards, dramatic vocals, classic Neo-Prog. Now, if IQ are perhaps a little too serious for you, give Pendragon a try. They brought a more melodic and uplifting vibe to Neo-Prog. Their 1985 album, The Duel, was really a great starting point. These guys leaned heavily into catchy guitar riffs and lush keyboard-driven soundscapes. So if you're looking for something a bit more on the symphonic side, Pendragon is a band for you. Then there's a band called Palace. They're another heavyweight. Their 1984 album, The Sentinel, is an absolute classic of the genre. It's got all those epic conceptual storytellings you expect from prog, but it also rocks pretty hard. If you're into your sci-fi themes and grandiose compositions, Palace are just where it's at. There's a band called 12th Night, and these brought a unique twist to Neo-Prog. They fused post-punk energy with progressive rock structures, which made their sound stand out. Their 82 album, Fact and Fiction, it's edgy, intense and socially aware, kind of like if a prog band had read too much George Orwell and then started a band. How about Arena? Now, if you're looking for something from the 90s that keeps the Neo-Prog flame alive, then check out Arena. They were founded by ex-Marillion drummer Mick Pointer, and their 1998 album The Visitor is one of the genre's later gems. It's so dramatic, it's epic, it's really everything you want from a good Neo-Prog record. Sargo were a Canadian band that brought a more commercial edge to Neo-Prog. Their 1981 album Worlds Apart gave them a big hit with the single On the Loose. They had a more synth-driven, almost pop-like sound, but don't let that fool you. They could still throw down with the best of them when it came to proggy musicianship. Well, jumping over to Poland, we've got Collage. These guys brought a more symphonic, melancholic vibe to their neo-prog scene. It was in their 1994 album Moonshine that became an absolute masterpiece, where they blended atmospheric soundscapes with powerful guitar work. If you're looking for something that tugs at the heartstrings, Collage will deliver. Period. Galadriel were from Spain, where they made a name for themselves with the album Chasing the Dragonfly in 1991. They mixed progressive rock with some Mediterranean influences, and it gives their sound quite a unique twist. This is definitely one to check out if you're looking to expand your neo-prog horizons. And finally, Sylvan, a German band that brought a modern spin to the genre. Albums like Posthumous Silence from 2006 show how neo-prog has continued to evolve. They combined rich, emotive vocals with atmospheric cinematic production, and it made them a standout act for anybody exploring the more contemporary side of neo-prog. There you have it. Neo-prog might not have been as mainstream as other genres in the 80s, but it's still a vital piece of the progressive rock puzzle. If you're a fan of the emotionally driven, complex music that still packs a punch, then try out some of these bands and albums. Trust me, there's really a lot to explore. So throughout February, I will be focusing on neo-prog, as well as some of the other normal prog rock stuff. Now, I've already recorded some videos featuring these bands, and I'm going to create a neo-prog playlist for you to enjoy. Both those current and new videos on the subject. Now, you can request a favourite neo-prog album to be featured this month. All you have to do is comment Neo and then the name of the album. So, for example, I could write in the comments, Neo Misplaced Childhood, and I will complete your request as quickly as I can. This is a real chance for you to shape and influence the channel this month. I've already recorded some neo-prog albums and reactions from the past, and there is a favourite one of mine from one of the early albums. So watch that one next, and I'll see you over there.